A completely fresh opening inspired by your original story, but told in a cinematic, elevated, emotionally loaded style. The email arrived at 2:14 p.m. Not a message from my boss, not an update on the quarterly projections, but a single-line notification from my bank. Refund of $17,500 has been successfully processed. I stared at the screen, motionless, while the office hummed around me. Printers sputtering, keyboards clacking, coworkers laughing 2 cubicles away. It was an ordinary Thursday afternoon in downtown Phoenix, the kind where nothing dramatic ever happens. Except today, the universe had finally snapped a thread that had been pulled for 10 long years. The swirl of numbers on the monitor didn't feel real. $17,500 landing back into my account should have made me panic or regret or gasp. Instead, I felt still, quiet, like the air just before a monsoon storm tears open the sky. "Clara, you okay?" Bethany leaned over the divider, chewing on a peppermint candy. Her eyebrows pulled into a small crease, the kind she saved for when someone's world was obviously about to crack. I clicked my laptop shut gently, as if the truth inside it might spill out. "Yeah," I said. "Just closing a chapter." She gave a slow, knowing nod. She was one of the few people who'd seen the edges of my life, the cracks my family pretended didn't exist. But even she didn't know the full story. No one did. Not yet. I grabbed my blazer, whispered a half-hearted heading out, and stepped into the hallway. The elevator doors slid open like a stage curtain, revealing the mirrored interior where my reflection stared back. A woman in a green blouse, tired eyes, a smile that looked like it belonged in a brochure for functioning adults. The moment the doors shut, the smile dropped. I leaned back against the cold metal and breathed. Deep, steady, controlled. My therapist calls it grounding. I call it survival, because an hour ago I'd done something unthinkable. I'd pulled the plug on the biggest gift I'd ever planned. A week-long luxury holiday in Colorado, 12 people, slopeside lodge, meals, lessons, everything. A surprise I'd dreamed of revealing on Christmas Day. A surprise my family had no idea was dying quietly in my bank ledger. But this beginning, this moment, didn't start with the cancellation email. It started 3 days earlier, with a phone call that sliced through my afternoon like broken glass. My phone had buzzed insistently, vibrating across my desk until the screen lit up with a name I knew far too well. Victoria. My sister's voice had the unique ability to transport me back to every version of myself I'd tried to outgrow. The obedient child, the reliable adult, the one who always said yes, no matter the sacrifice. I answered anyway. And the first words out of her mouth weren't hello, or how are you, or anything resembling humanity. They were, cancel whatever you planned. I need you to watch the kids on Christmas Eve. Not asked, not suggested, stated. As if my life orbit existed solely around her convenience. I remember staring out my office window, Phoenix sun blazing over the skyline, while her voice rattled on about mandatory dinners and holiday babysitting rates. And somewhere between her entitlement and my exhaustion, I felt something quiet and razor-sharp shift inside me. A small thought, a dangerous thought. What if I finally said no? But saying no had consequences in our family, not loud ones, not violent ones. No. My family specialized in a different brand of punishment. Exclusion, silence, guilt sharpened like glass. And for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't afraid of the fallout. In fact, I felt ready for it. I felt calm, too calm, because deep down I knew what was coming. A reckoning 10 years overdue, a storm my sister accidentally summoned with one arrogant demand. And I knew something else too. This Christmas would not end the way any of them expected. It would begin with a lie, explode with a truth, and finish with a family shattered by the one person they never thought would fight back. Me. The drive home should have cleared my head, but every red light felt like an interrogation. Phoenix glowed in that restless way it always did before Christmas. Traffic thick with last-minute shoppers, radio stations cycling through the same cheerful songs that clashed violently with the quiet furnace burning in my chest. By the time I reached my condo, the sun was sinking behind Camelback Mountain, washing the sky in blood-orange light. Fitting, I thought. The world always looked prettiest right before something exploded. Inside, the silence embraced me like cold water. No kids screaming, no passive-aggressive family commentary, just clean floors, minimal furniture, and the faint scent of the lavender candle I'd left burning that morning. My sanctuary. I set my phone on the counter, one buzz, then another, then three more. Victoria again. I didn't look, not yet. Some storms you face only when you're ready. I needed grounding, so I walked straight to the balcony. The evening breeze carried the dusty smell of desert pavement cooling at dusk. I closed my eyes and let the world go quiet. But quiet doesn't erase memory. And my family had a way of living rent-free in the back of my mind, building mansions out of guilt and emotional debt. I replayed the moment Victoria demanded I babysit, her voice sharp, entitled, overflowing with certainty that I would bend, because I always did. She didn't even pause when I told her I had plans with Trevor. Plans I'd been looking forward to for weeks. Plans she felt entitled to erase with a snap of her fingers. The thing about emotional patterns is this. You don't notice you're drowning until your lungs start burning. I had been burning for years. When I walked back inside, the buzzing had stopped. I picked up the phone expecting more demands, but instead, I found a text from Trevor. "Trevor, how's your afternoon? Haven't heard from you. Everything okay?" My chest softened. Trevor was a quiet strength in my life, steady where my family was chaotic, caring where they were careless. I typed back, "Me, long day. Can I call you tonight?" His reply was instant. "Trevor, always." A small, fragile warmth threaded through me, but it was quickly shadowed by the looming storm of responsibility, resentment, and history. Because if Section 1 of my life had been about survival, Section 2 was about awakening, and awakenings are rarely gentle. I finally forced myself to check my notifications. 10 missed calls, 4 voicemails, 6 texts, all from Victoria. The most recent message was only 3 words: "Do not ignore me." I exhaled, long and slow. There it was. The command, the entitlement, the assumption that she had authority over me simply because she needed something. But this time, I wasn't spiraling into guilt or rationalizing her behavior. This time, something inside me felt immovable. I tapped on the first voice message. Her voice burst out too loudly in the quiet condo. "Clara, this is ridiculous. Call me back. We need to finalize things for Christmas Eve. Do not make me chase you all day." The second message was sharper. "Honestly, I don't understand why this is even a discussion. You know how much I have to juggle. Just do this one thing. It's not hard." The third message cracked with irritation. "Are you seriously ignoring me? Is Trevor in your ear again? This is family, Clara. You need to grow up and stop acting like your little plans are more important than your obligations." The fourth voice message was almost a whisper, a dangerous one. "If you bail on me, don't bother showing up on Christmas." I stopped the playback. My heartbeat didn't spike, my breath didn't hitch. Instead, something quiet clicked into place, a realization, a truth. She'd said it like a threat, but it landed like a liberation. "Don't bother showing up on Christmas." Okay, then I wouldn't. Not for dinner, not for peacekeeping, not for tradition. And definitely not for people who saw me as a utility rather than a person. Slowly, methodically, I walked to my bedroom, pulled out my journal, the one with 10 years of swallowed words and invisible bruises, and opened to a fresh page. I wrote one sentence. "This ends now." The words looked small on paper, but inside they roared. Later that evening, as twilight swallowed the desert, I finally called Trevor. He answered on the first ring. "Talk to me," he said softly. I sank onto the edge of my bed, staring at the shadows stretching across the floor. "I think I finally realized what I've been afraid to admit," I whispered. "What's that?" "That my family doesn't love me. They love what I solve for them." Silence. Then his voice, steady, warm, unflinching. "Then it's time to stop solving." And just like that, Section 2 slipped into place. The build-up, the pressure, the quiet before a storm no one in my family was prepared for. But I was. More ready than they'd ever believe. A major emotional pivot. Cinematic, intense, and transformative. The next morning, the world felt unnaturally still, like the desert holding its breath before a sandstorm. I woke early, not from an alarm but from a feeling. A pull, a pressure. something in the air whispering, "Today changes everything." The first message hit my phone at 7:03 a.m., not from Victoria, from my mother. "Mom, sweetheart, call me when you wake up. Something strange is happening." Strange. That word alone could have meant anything in my family. Burnt casserole, lost keys, emotional explosion. But something in me tightened. I called her back expecting concern. Instead, I got panic. "Clara, did you see what your sister posted on Facebook?" She blurted, voice shaky. My stomach dropped. "No. Why? What happened?" There was a rustling sound, then Mom reading aloud, every word dripping with dread. "So excited to announce the surprise trip our family has coming up, beyond grateful for the person who made this possible. You know who you are." She paused, and then through clenched teeth she added, "And she included a picture of our whole family, including you." I walked to the kitchen in silence, picked up a glass, filled it with water, set it down, all on autopilot. Mom kept talking. There are already hundreds of comments. Everyone's asking about the trip. She won't shut up about how she knew it was coming and how much planning she's done. "Clara, did you plan something? Did you tell her something?" "No," I said flatly. And it was the truth. Mom let out a slow exhale that sounded like disappointment, or fear. "Your father is furious. He says this is exactly the kind of attention-seeking nonsense Victoria pulls, but everyone thinks it was her idea." I closed my eyes. There it was, the twist, the pivot. Victoria didn't just take credit privately. She announced a trip publicly, to hundreds of people, for a vacation she had no part in planning and no ability to provide, a trip that no longer existed. The storm had officially begun. Not 5 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time, the screen flashed the one person I wasn't ready for, Victoria. Normally, I'd ignore her, let her bury herself. But today, no, I wanted to hear it. I wanted the truth spilled straight from her. I answered. The moment the line clicked, she started talking. Rapid, breathless, frantic. "Clara, oh my God, the post is blowing up. I didn't expect this many people to respond. And now Mom and Dad are grilling me about who paid for everything and I need you to back me up." I held the phone loosely. Calm. Detached. Almost amused. "Back you up." "How?" I asked. "You know," she hissed. "Just confirm that it's happening." "You want me to confirm a lie? A lie?" She let out a harsh laugh. "Clara, don't be dramatic. I was excited. People were asking what we were doing for Christmas. I just hinted at the trip." "Harmless." "Harmless?" I repeated softly. "You announced a trip you didn't plan and can't afford. To the entire internet." A beat of silence. Then the truth cracked in her voice. "They think it was me." And there it was. The real reason she called. Not regret, not guilt, not awareness. Fear. Fear of being exposed, fear of humiliation, fear that the world would finally see the cracks in her perfectly curated facade. "Clara," she whispered, voice trembling, "please, just don't tell them. Don't ruin this for me." "For you?" My voice was cold enough to freeze the air between us. "This was supposed to be a family moment," she snapped defensively. "A big thing, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And you're ruining it." "No," I cut in sharply. "You ruined it the second you tried to claim credit for something you didn't lift a finger to create." Her breath hitched. I continued, voice low, deliberate. "You stood on a stage I built, with money I earned, for a gift I planned, and before I even revealed it, you grabbed the microphone and took the bow." Silence. A long, trembling silence. Then, "Are you going to tell them?" "No," I said. "Not yet." Another beat. I could feel her hope stretching across the line. "But I'm not protecting you either. Clara, I'm giving you one chance. One opportunity to tell the truth before someone else does." Her breathing changed. Shallow, panicked. "And if I don't?" I closed my eyes. This was the moment, the shift, the midpoint twist. "If you don't," I said softly, "then the truth will come out without you. And trust me, you won't like the version that reaches them." I heard a choked sound. Fear, anger, desperation, I couldn't tell. But for the first time in my life, my sister was afraid of losing me, not the other way around. And that was the beginning of everything changing. Escalating tension, emotional depth, the pressure before the explosion. The day before Christmas Eve felt like a tightening noose. Every hour brought a new ripple of fallout from Victoria's post. By mid-morning, half the extended family had shared it. Old acquaintances were congratulating her. Even people I hadn't spoken to since high school were tagging me. "Your sister is amazing. What an incredible surprise you all have coming. Victoria always does the most for her family. This is why family matters." I didn't respond. I didn't correct them. Not yet. Victoria hadn't confessed. Of course she hadn't. She was too busy riding the wave of attention, even as it spiraled out of control. And I could feel it. She was waiting for me to clean up the mess. To rescue her. To sacrifice myself one more time for her public image. But that version of me was gone. By noon, I was at Trevor's place. He made me tea without asking. The kind with honey and cloves that cracked open something in my chest. "You're quiet," he said, sitting beside me. "Just thinking." "About her?" I shook my head slowly. "About me." Trevor waited. He never filled silence with unnecessary words. It was one of the many reasons I could breathe around him. When I was younger, I began staring into my cup. I thought love meant endurance. That the more you put up with, the more loyal you were. That saying yes made you good. His hand brushed mine, warm and steady. And now I think I was being trained. A bitter smile. Groomed, really. To give until there was nothing left. Trevor didn't say I was wrong. He didn't try to soften it, he just listened. It made the truth easier to speak. "I keep thinking," I whispered, "that if I tell them everything, what she did, what they've done, they'll finally understand. Finally see me. But deep down, I know they won't." Trevor exhaled. "And that's the part that hurts the most." "Yes." My voice cracked. "Because I'm not losing my family. I'm losing the version of them I kept pretending existed." That truth settled in the room like dust motes drifting through sunlight. Soft, quiet, inescapable. But the silence didn't last. My phone began ringing. Then again. Then again. At first, I ignored it. But when the screen lit up with Dad, the call I had been dreading, something twisted inside me. Trevor nodded. "You should take it." I didn't want to. But avoiding the storm wouldn't stop it. I stepped onto the patio and answered. Dad didn't bother with greetings. "Clara, your mother is in tears. Your sister is beside herself. We need to talk." There it was. The tone. Authoritative. Disappointed. The tone that always preceded a lecture about what I owed them. "What happened now?" I asked, voice flat. "What happened is that your sister's post has the entire family confused and excited. And instead of correcting her, you're letting this become a circus." A humorless laugh escaped me. "You think this is my responsibility?" Dad bristled. "Victoria says you're upset with her. That's fine, but dragging the rest of us into your issues." "My issues?" The words snapped out before I could stop them. A beat. Dad's disappointment dripped through the phone. "You're being dramatic, Clara. This was supposed to be a happy holiday. Instead, you're causing problems." I closed my eyes. There it was again, my entire childhood condensed into one sentence. I cause problems. I ruin holidays. I make things difficult. Not Victoria. Not the person who took credit for a luxury vacation she didn't fund or plan. Not the person who threatened me. Me. "Dad," I said quietly, "did Victoria tell you what she threatened me with?" "She didn't threaten you. She asked you to help, no?" "She threatened to ban me from Christmas dinner." Silence. Then a dismissive sigh. "She didn't mean that." "I think she did." "And even if she did," he added, "you should have ignored it. She was stressed. You know how she gets." I felt it then. Something inside me splintering. A final crack in a long fractured foundation. "There it is," I whispered. "Exactly what I knew you'd say. Clara, no. Listen to me." My voice shook, but it didn't waver. "I am not responsible for cleaning up Victoria's lies. I am not responsible for the fallout of her ego. I am not the family's crisis manager. Not anymore." Dad's tone hardened. "This isn't just about her. This affects all of us." "For once," I said bitterly. "Good." A sharp inhale. "What does that mean?" "It means the consequences are hers to face. And yours for enabling her." The silence that followed wasn't confusion, it was disbelief. like I had spoken a language he didn't understand. "Clara," he said slowly, "you are walking a dangerous line." "No," I said softly, "I'm finally walking mine." Before he could respond, I ended the call. My hands were shaking, my breath was shallow. But inside, something fierce was waking up. Trevor stepped onto the patio, eyes searching mine. "How bad was it?" I swallowed hard. "They're choosing her, again, and you?" "For the first time," I said, voice steady, "I'm choosing me." And with those words, the story surged toward its climax. A confrontation none of them were ready for. But I was. Christmas Day felt like stepping into a frozen photograph. Everything still, every sound too sharp, every breath too heavy. I parked in front of my parents' house exactly at noon. The driveway was already full. Victoria's van, Julian's truck, my parents' sedans, Hannah's rental car, all lined up like witnesses waiting for a show they didn't yet know I was about to headline. I stood at the door for a full 5 seconds, hand hovering above the handle. Not hesitating. Just acknowledging. Acknowledging that when I crossed that threshold, something fundamental in my life would end. Then I opened the door. Warm air and the smell of prime rib washed over me. Laughter, clattering dishes, soft holiday music. All of it died instantly the moment they saw me. The room went still. Victoria was standing by the tree, Mom by the kitchen door, Dad in his recliner, Hannah on the couch, hands knotted in her lap. The entire room looked at me as if I were a storm rolling through a clear sky. Victoria spoke first. "Wow, you actually came?" Her tone wasn't surprise, it was accusation. I closed the door behind me, calm, composed, cold. "We need to talk," I said. Mom moved toward me instantly, flustered and fragile. "Clara, sweetheart, maybe we can all sit down first, have dinner, and then—" "No." I looked at her gently. "Mom, I'm done rearranging myself to make you comfortable." That sentence landed like a blade. Victoria folded her arms, her face twisting. "Here we go, the dramatics." I ignored her and stepped fully into the living room. The air felt tight, compressed, like the house itself understood what was coming. Dad cleared his throat. "If this is about the trip—" "It is," I said, "but not in the way you think." I looked directly at Victoria. "I gave you a chance. You didn't take it." She blinked, playing innocent. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Then let's make it clear." I reached into my bag and pulled out the printed itinerary. The luxury lodge, the dates, the confirmation code, the trip I had booked, the trip I had canceled. I set it on the coffee table like evidence in a trial. This, I said, was the family vacation. A surprise I planned months ago. A trip I paid for. Fully, quietly. Because I wanted to do something generous. Something memorable. Mom gasped. Hannah's eyes widened. Dad leaned forward. Victoria froze. I continued, voice even. "And it was supposed to be announced today." By me, the weight of my words settled heavily. Then I shifted my gaze to Victoria. "But somewhere along the way, you decided the story belonged to you." Her face reddened. "I never—" "You posted about it online," I said, cutting her off. "You implied it was your surprise. You soaked up attention from hundreds of people. You let the entire family believe you were the one doing something special." Victoria's jaw tightened. "I didn't say it was my trip." "No," I said softly. "You just didn't correct anyone who thought it was—" Silence. Dense. Suffocating. Mom whispered, "Victoria, is that true?" Victoria looked around the room, searching for an escape. I didn't think it mattered. I just got excited. Everyone was asking what we were doing for the holidays. "So you lied," I said. Dad stood. "Victoria, you should have told us." But Victoria rounded on me instead. "This is your fault. If you didn't want people to know, you should have told me. You should have kept it a real secret." I stared at her, almost stunned. "You can't take credit for something you didn't do and then blame me for it." "Yes, I can," she snapped. "You always make everything so dramatic. You ruin every holiday with your enough." My voice wasn't loud, but it cut the room in half. "For 10 years, I said, I have paid for emergencies that weren't emergencies. I helped raise your kids. I covered bills. I sacrificed holidays, plans, promotions, and relationships for this family. And every time I set a boundary, every single time, you punished me for it." Mom flinched. Dad looked down. Hannah wiped a tear. I took a breath. And then you threatened to ban me from Christmas if I didn't babysit for you. You told me my relationship didn't matter, that my life didn't matter. Victoria scoffed, but her voice cracked. I didn't mean it. You always mean it, I said gently. You just don't like the consequences. I straightened, feeling the final shift inside me, the moment where the old version of myself took her last breath. So yes, I canceled the trip. My voice was steady, unshakable. I will not reward people who treat me like a resource instead of a daughter, a sister, a person. Mom stepped forward, tears spilling. Clara, wait, I'm not leaving the family, I said softly. I'm leaving the version of the family that only exists when I'm useful. The silence that followed wasn't shocked. It was awakening. And when I walked out of that house, coat on, head high, heart steady, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. A powerful, elegant, emotionally resonant ending, with closure, clarity, and quiet transformation. I didn't cry in the car. I thought I might. I thought the weight of 10 years of bruised boundaries and strained holidays would spill over the moment I left their driveway. But the tears didn't come. What came instead was stillness. A strange, sudden, liberating stillness, like stepping out of a noisy room and realizing the noise was never yours to carry. By the time I pulled into my condo complex, the sun was dipping low, brushing the sky with the last pale strokes of winter daylight. Christmas lights blinked along balconies, cheerful and oblivious. Somewhere, a neighbor played soft jazz. The world went on. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was part of it, not trapped behind the glass of my family's expectations. Trevor was waiting for me at the top of the stairs, leaning against my doorframe with 2 mugs of something steaming. When he saw my face, he didn't speak. He didn't ask questions. He just opened his arms. I walked straight into them, and that's when the tears finally came. Not loud, not broken, just quiet, steady streams I didn't wipe away. Tears for the girl I had been, for the woman I was choosing to become, for the years lost in the space between who I was and who they needed me to be. Trevor held me until the shaking eased. When I finally stepped back, he touched my cheek gently. Want to tell me? I nodded. We sat on my couch, legs folded, mugs warming our hands. The room glowed softly from the tree lights I'd hung days earlier, back when I still believed this Christmas would be simple. I told him everything, every word, every wound, and he didn't interrupt. Not once. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. Clara, he said. That wasn't a confrontation. He looked at me with something like awe. That was you choosing yourself. I didn't respond. Not because I disagreed, but because I didn't know how to hold the enormity of that truth. Later that night, when the quiet settled thick and deep, my phone lit up once. Mom? I don't know how we got here. I want to understand. Call me when you're ready. I didn't reply. Another buzz. Hannah, I'm proud of you. Maybe this is what our family needed, even if they don't know it yet. That one made my throat tighten. And then, the inevitable. Victoria, a simple thank you would have been enough. But you had to make a show of it. You always do. I locked my phone. I felt nothing. Not anger, not guilt, not grief, just the clear, crystalline knowledge that every message I didn't answer was a step toward freedom. 3 months later, I found myself packing for a weekend trip to Sedona with Trevor, a gift he'd given me on Christmas Eve, hours before the world tilted. My life looked different now, quieter, simpler, mine. I'd stopped covering emergencies that weren't mine. Stopped answering calls that only came when someone needed something. Stopped contorting myself into shapes that never fit. My parents tried to bridge the gap a few times. Soft texts, cautious invitations, but each message carried an undercurrent of the same old expectations. I didn't rush to fix anything. Healing doesn't move on their timeline. Maybe someday we'd find each other again, maybe not. But for once, that uncertainty didn't feel like loss. It felt like choice. Victoria didn't reach out again. I heard, through Hannah, that she'd lost her job in February, that Julian moved out, that the shine of her curated perfection had finally cracked. The old me would have shown up, written checks, saved the day. The new me wasn't cruel, just done. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is step away from a cycle that refuses to break. One evening, as Trevor and I shared a quiet dinner on the balcony, he reached across the table and took my hand. You seem lighter lately, he said. I looked out at the Phoenix skyline. the city glowing warm against the darkening sky. I whispered. I finally stopped confusing endurance with love. He squeezed my hand gently. And what do you call it now? Respect, I said. Self-respect. The wind swept gently across the balcony, cool and soft, and in that moment, everything inside me aligned. The gift I canceled had once felt like a loss. But it was never about the trip. It was about the illusion I finally stopped paying for, and the life I began building in its place. The last of the day's light disappeared. Trevor leaned over and kissed my forehead. You did the hardest thing, he murmured. I nodded, eyes closing. No, I whispered. I finally did the right thing. And for the first time in years, the future did not feel like something that would happen to me. It felt like something I would choose. If you want an epilogue, a title, a cover synopsis, or thumbnail lines, just tell me.